In my Witch Hat Atelier video, I briefly mentioned a group of manga and anime called the Seinen Trio. The trio includes Vagabond, Berserk, and Vinland Saga. This group unites under the seinen genre, one that takes darker and more mature themes compared to its shonen counterpart. Some would argue that Kingdom deserves a spot in that group, but I've never watched nor read it, so that isn't my argument to make. I've read Vagabond first in 2022, which led me to reading Berserk that very same year. Just like the fantasy trio, I inadvertently went through it, leaving Vinland Saga as the last of the three. So I pulled my best Thorfinn impression and had a 3-year time skip. An eventful 3 years of growth, development, and evolution. Evolution that led me to culture. Said culture led me to the anime. Because of that, I won't speak on the manga in this video as not to disrespect or assume anything between the two. I genuinely couldn't pass up on the anime when I've only heard great things about it. But it's been a long time coming, so let me delay no further. Allow me the pleasure of showing you all my journey through Vinland Saga. Let's do this in one take. So as a warning before I get into the thick of it, this video will include unmitigated amounts of spoilers for Vinland Saga Season 1 and 2. If you want to stay clean, watch the show or read the manga, and then come back, but if not, then watch at your own discretion. But with that being said, let me give you all a quick synopsis, or at the very least my best attempt at one anyway. This story is set during 1000 AD. The Saxons and the Dutch are fighting an exhaustive war. The season itself takes place in Iceland, with us following Thorfinn, our main character. Thorfinn is 6 years old. He's a pretty happy kid, right? Well, this kid watched his father die protecting him from a Viking group led by a man named Askeladd. He is no longer happy. His death was a trap set by Thor's former Viking group, the Jomsvikings. With no way back home to his family, Thorfinn stays with Askeladd so he can avenge his father through a duel. This leads to him staying until he's 17 years old, pillaging and fighting alongside the group while still trying to kill Askeladd in the process. All this death, suffering, and brutality takes its toll on Thorfinn, with Season 1's events fundamentally changing him from a bright-eyed kid into a man possessed by revenge. And that's all that needs to be said for now. Of course, there's significantly more to this, but this is a summary, not a recap. Regardless, I want to mention the show's strongest point to me, the characters. They are so well written. The intimate and personal moments between them makes them feel like real life people. For example, Ylva being a good sister by taking care of Thorfinn in episode 1. Doris being a good dad by challenging his son before Thorfinn does something stupid. Askeladd's contemplative silence after killing Thors. Thorfinn describing Vinland to Hordaland, just to name a few. Point is, while I did list moments like that, they don't occur often. They're sparse, which makes them more impactful when they do appear. These short but important window panes into the soul of these characters are necessary to get us interested in them, and I love them for that. Makoto Yukimura did a masterful job making these characters. There's countless video essays on YouTube that dissect characters like Askeladd or Thorfinn, so I recommend looking for any of those if you want a good character analysis. But trust me, there's a good reason why those videos even exist, or why TikTok edits usually have aura moments, but also have more introspective, reflective, and powerful scenes from the show. My favorite one so far is still the "I have no enemy" speech. It's simple but impactful advice coming from Thors, a man who's seen the horrors of war. Thors' way of life is defined by his legacy and his experiences in the story. It's advice that Thorfinn hears early on, but doesn't understand just yet, mainly because the boy is still 6 years old, so he doesn't know what most of this means, but also because it comes at a time where Thorfinn hasn't seen just how bad it can truly get out there in the world. But as the story progresses, especially during the second half of it, we're shown how bad it truly gets. War shows the dark underbelly of humanity. For all the good we see early on, we see just how much evil can truly exist in their world. Which brings me to the show's philosophy. A lot of characters have their own views on life in the show. Some live for glory and to make it to Valhalla, others do it for money and to survive, and some do it just to live with their families. For instance, Thors and Askeladd have their own ways of viewing life that are the most prominent in the show. Both are warriors, but the difference between the two couldn't be clearer. Thors found peace long before he died, while Askeladd didn't find it until he died. If he even did find it, that is. Thors died with his son in his arms, while Askeladd died in a room full of people, but somehow the only person truly there during Askeladd's death was Thorfinn. Askeladd was a leader of great renown, honored and feared for his skill and mind, but nobody knew him, not even his close friends. And of course that was by Askeladd's design. Thor, however, was a respected legend turned traitor, but he had a family that loved him. Only one of them was truly happy. Point is, a lot of characters are warriors, but only some stick out to the viewer because of their perspective on life. Like these two. They also end up serving as Thorfinn's mentors throughout the story, so they get most of the spotlight as well. Askeladd was harsh but realistic. He never held Thorfinn's hand. He molded him into a warrior by throwing him into the fire. It was aggressive, but it prepared Thorfinn for the world he was in. Thor, however, tried to mold Thorfinn's mind. As long as Thorfinn knew that he had no enemies, he'd be okay even without his father. It's beautiful writing that has subtle scenes and interactions with deep meaning and importance. Regardless, Vinland Saga Season 1 is an 8 out of 10, but it's still a banger. It has amazing animation by Studio Wit, a good story so far, good voice actors, granted I watched it in Japanese so I can't speak to the English VAs, and good characters. Some people may not like the pace, but it's not bad by any means. It's a slow burn, so be wary of that, but if you can handle that then you'll enjoy it. I like the first half of the season a lot, with most of my enjoyment coming from that half. The second half wasn't bad at all though, but it definitely dragged for a few episodes, despite there being a goal in mind. The tension, however, did help carry my interest throughout it though, but once episode 17 hit, it went into full gear. My favorite episode was a tie between 4 and 24, but episodes 6, 9, 10, 14, 19, 21, and 22 were also good choices. My favorite characters were Thorfinn, Thors, Yova, and Hordaland. Thorkel and Thorfinn's first fight was my favorite, and my favorite moment was when Thors gave Thorfinn his dagger. As I'm writing this script, I haven't watched season 2 yet, so my current mindset is that season is going to be elite, and I can't wait for that. Plus, I haven't even touched the surface of what Thorfinn is even about. The reason being because I want to give him more attention once I finish season 2 so I can understand what this character is truly about. Regardless, let's see what season 2 has in store. Okay, so a lot happened since I last spoke to you all. It's been 30 or so seconds in the video, but for me it's been almost a month to 2 months. I finished season 2 and I have so much I want to say. But let me give you all some context first. Season 1 and 2 have a 4-year gap in between them. This happened because COVID happened in between them, so anime production was difficult to navigate, as was most parts of life in general. Which studio dropped the show, and MAPPA ended up animating season 2 instead. So depending on the person, you may not like season 2 visually. I won't get into my thoughts on the animation just yet, but be aware of this change. Anyway, let me get into my synopsis. This season, just like season 1, doesn't start with Thorfinn. Instead, we meet Einar, an English man who lives with his mother and sister. His father and most of the men in his village passed away defending it against Vikings, so it's just them and the remaining villagers trying to rebuild and find peace once again. But as for what is an unfortunately common occurrence in this time period, Vikings attack again. They massacre and pillage the village, taking women and children as slaves. In the chaos, Einar's family ends up dying in the process, leaving Einar to survive but in enslavement. He gets bought by a man named Kettle who owns land and turns it into a farm for profit. The most efficient way to do so is to hire slaves like Einar and have them create farmland. Now, months after the event, he has the chance to work off his debt of being bought, so if he can work for 3 years straight, he'll be a free man. But he won't be doing it alone, because this is where we regroup with Thorfinn. We find out that after his attack on Canute, he was forced into slavery, but like Einar, he was also bought by Kettle, so he's been working to pay off his debt as well. And if I'm being honest, 80% of this season takes place here. We'll mainly follow Thorfinn and Einar, but we also see an older Canute as well. There's also side characters like Arnheid, Potter, Snake, Almar, Thorgil, Wolf, and others. They impact the story in different ways, but we focus mainly on Thorfinn, Einar, and Canute. So nearing the end of their tenure on the farm, Canute ends up bringing an army to seize Kettle. His son Olmar was used as a tool by Canute to kill one of his men. So Olmar, Kettle, and Thorgil, another one of his children, were asked to surrender the farm and go into exile. Kettle, however, refused because his pride and arrogance got to him. This led to most of the people on his farmland being slaughtered by the Joms Vikings. Meanwhile, Leif struck a deal with Kettle before the war broke out. He bought Thorfinn and Einar's freedom, so they could have left before the fighting started, but Thorfinn decided to stay for a little longer. Knowing Canute for a short but impactful few months, he went to go broker peace for the farm. And after one of the best stretches of episodes in the series, Thorfinn and Canute come to an accord. They they will build a peaceful world together, Thorfinn fixing what Canute cannot. That's such a funny twist of words. But with peace guaranteed for the farm, Canute leaves. Only a few people survive, so they have to rebuild, but hope has never been higher on the farm, with Almar becoming the head of it now. Now Thorfinn and his group can leave, making their way to Iceland. Once there, after 44 long episodes, Thorfinn finally reunites with his family, along with new additions like Ylva and Ari being married and them having multiple children. But his journey is nowhere near done, with him looking to create a place for people to run away from war. He'll make Vinland a reality. And that's my condensed version of season 2. Now it's time to give you all my thoughts. And to put it simply, this season is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. Mappa did a phenomenal job animating the season. There are moments where characters won't have eyes, or it'll be a frame with a shaky cam effect on it for 5 to 10 seconds. Those instances happen more often than not, so it's not perfect per se, but I don't mind them because the upside is marginally better. Episode 9, 17, 22, and 23 are good examples of this. Personally, I prefer Mappa's style compared to Wit. I feel like it fits better for the show when it's outside of combat, but Wit 100% takes the candle in the action department. But props to Mappa for taking up the challenge and doing a great job regardless. The voice actors put up their best efforts this season as well. The scenes get emotionally charged and they make sure you feel it. And I'm sorry if I butcher this, but especially Yuro Uemura, because good lord, the story is there to put the characters in scenarios where they will grow or crumble. This simplicity helps enhance other aspects of the show as well, but it's still interesting enough to keep you engaged. And that's taking into account that most of the show takes place on the farm. That being said, the pacing is slower than last season, but I promise you, I never found myself bored, not once. In fact, the pacing made the highs hold more weight. Again, the peaks hit so hard because the wait in between helped build the anticipation. But just like last time, the characters are wholeheartedly my favorite part. The characters are done so well that saying, quote, the characters are well done, end quote, is an understatement. Let me start with the side characters. There was significant improvement in getting the viewer interested in them. For season 1, there was characters like Thors, Askeladd, and Canute, who I like because of their story. They significantly got more attention, especially if they had connection to Thorfinn. But besides like Ylva, Leif, and Hordaland, I felt indifferent about everybody else. Either they weren't the focus, they were done growing, or they had no relation to Thorfinn. So to be frank, I didn't really care about them. Season 2, however, made me care. Characters like Einar, Arnheid, Snake, Sverkel, Olmar, not Olimar, that's Pikmin, and Kettle all had arcs or were fundamentally changed by the story's events, for better or for worse. One of my favorite ones was Arnheid's story. Her introduction did not prepare me for her stretch of episodes. I was ugly crying so bad when episode 17 came to a close. It was heartrending, devastating, but beautifully executed. And I don't even want to spoil it because it's that good. If you haven't watched it, please do. And on that same note, Almar as well, where we see him start out as a bratty kid, but once the flame gets too close, he crumbles. He wanted to be a warrior but wasn't meant for that life, which is completely fine. My enjoyment came from him learning this about himself. He killed a man no matter how you slice it. That act fundamentally changes him forever. He's hollowed and terrified of death after seeing how easily it can come. Even when Thorgil, his older brother, pushes him towards a continued war against Canute, he refuses. He stands up to his brother and makes it known that he's surrendering, especially since the decision falls on him now. Letting go of that pride and prioritizing their safety was beautiful to see because it's something that his father couldn't do. It paid off tremendously too because Thorfinn came in clutch. While I didn't mention everybody, I hope these examples paint a clear picture of what I mean. These side characters have beautiful stories. But before I go, I wanted to talk about the main two people that I neglected to mention, Thorfinn and Canute. I held off on them because I wanted to give them their own space in the video. They are bar none the best parts of season 2 and honestly the best parts of the show. I never thought that these two would parallel each other so well. So let me start with Canute. In season 1, we see him go from a shy and scared prince to a young but determined king in the making. Of course, this was due to Askeladd manipulating the boy after Ragnar's death. Mind you, a death that Askeladd openly admits to causing. After the end of season 1, however, Canute wastes no time. He takes care of Ethelred by using his people against him. He kills his own brother by poisoning him and uses Almar to seize the Kettle farm. And I can't stress this enough, this is outrageously flagrant behavior. And the reason for it is because of the crown he wears. The same crown his father wore is corrupting him, to the point where the severed head of his father randomly appears to taunt him. Let's put a pin on that for now though. As I promised, we have to look at our guy, Thorfinn Karlsefni. In season 1, we see Thorfinn be transformed into a merciless killing machine at Askeladd's disposal. Revenge had distorted his worldview, along with the type of life he lived in general. Thorfinn lost his father, and in turn, lost himself. But when Askeladd died and Thorfinn was then forced into slavery, his whole reason for fighting was gone. He put so much of his life into attempting to kill Askeladd that nothing was left as a result. adult. Thorfinn lived 2 lives at this point, one as a 6-year-old kid and one as a warrior for 11 years. But now he would live a 3rd life, as a slave. But calling it living is being generous, because Thorfinn was more just existing. He was depressed, traumatized, and confused. He didn't have a reason to live until Einar appeared. Thanks to his new lifestyle, Thorfinn learned a lot about how war can affect people who want nothing to do with it. How Thorfinn ended so many lives and spared them not a second thought. How heartless he was. That's why he has nightmares every single night. He's hard on himself because the spirits of the dead haunt him until he can make peace with his past. And it takes a while, but it eventually happens because he starts seeking redemption. He gained perspective from people like Arnheid, Svelkel, Snake, and most of all, Einar. People who lost family to Vikings, people who are farmers, and people who were once warriors themselves. He learns from them that there is a reason to keep living, but most of all, he remembers his father's teachings, that in this world, Thorfinn has no enemies, so he makes his vow to never choose violence as a first option ever again. So when Thorfinn, Einar, and Canute have a conversation about a peace for the farm later on, Thorfinn raises his fist not once. He speaks with conviction and determination towards someone who knew him before he healed. This conversation was awesome because it highlights those parallels I mentioned earlier. Canute and Thorfinn are this season's stories in Askeladd. Thorfinn found peace with himself after suffering through mental hell. He found his answer, he found his path, and his world that he wants to create. Canute found his world that he wants to create, and it's not dissimilar from Thorfinn's, but the difference is the path that he takes to it. Canute killed his brother for no reason except for the complete control of the Danish army. Mind you, this is one of his few family members that loved him dearly. He's taking the Askeladd approach by scheming his way to the top, but in turn, he's corrupting himself and the world around him. This is the divide between being a good king and a good person. But the difference between Askeladd and Thor's generation versus Thorfinn and Canute's is that the latter could come to an accord. Thorfinn managed to get through to Canute by refusing violence with a simple, "I'll run away." Canute could have killed Thorfinn, taken the farm, exiled Kettle, and continued on his path. But he didn't, because Thorfinn got through to him. The substantial amount of growth and development was more than enough to show Canute that Thorfinn's way was possible. So he believed in his friend and he left. That's the difference. The ability to talk through an impasse as friends. Something that Askeladd and Thor's couldn't do, which led to Thor's death in an endless world of bodies. Thorfinn is pushing his father's way of life further, looking to change his world for the better. After like 2 months of promises, I finally got it out. The video is done, and I want to say first and foremost, thank you all so much for watching. I put so much love, effort, and passion into this video, I can't even begin to describe it. I love making these videos so much, and I hope that the Vinland Saga fans who watch this, that I give your show some justice. It's a labor of love, but I know I was bound to miss some things, so if there's anything you wish I mentioned, leave a comment down below. Be conscious of spoilers of course, but I'd be happy to hear from you all. I love this show so much, I will most likely read the manga, but just give me a bit because this is a lot to do and I'm really tired. As for what's next, I need to make a couple of short videos for a bit, so I have to catch up on what I missed. Regardless though, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all for watching, especially if you watched all the way to the end. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and as always, this has been Infamous Isaac, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.